These days, the phrase worst year ever is frequently used, mostly online and for many reasons. However, historians and scientists have genuinely contended that in this planet's lengthy history, no year has ever been worse than the year 536. Although history has produced several deserving candidates for the worst year ever, no single year has had a more demonstrably negative effect on the decades that followed. We'll explain why the year 536 was the worst time to be alive today. Let us now conclude this once and for all, year 536 was the worst year ever. The Byzantine historian Procopius saw trouble growing in the air when traveling with his boss in Sicily in 536, while working as a military counselor to one of the most illustrious generals in the Byzantine Empire, Belisarius. He described a sun that, like the moon, shone light without brilliance for the entire year. And because the beams it was shedding were not as clear as they usually were, it appeared to be in eclipse. In other words, it was always ever dark outdoors. He was not alone, of course, in observing that the sun seemed to be in a temper during 536. A Byzantine writer named Michael the Syrian would subsequently record this time as follows: "The sun became dark, and its darkness lasted for 18 months. It shone for roughly 4 hours every day, but even then, the light was but a weak shadow. Everyone said that the sun would never shine again to its fullest. The wine tasted like sour grapes, and the fruits would never ripen." For at least a full year in 536, the world was covered in a non-metaphorical dark cloud due to the sun's erratic behavior. Subsequently, scientists found proof of a gigantic volcanic eruption, the ash from which spread devastation throughout the globe and probably played a significant role in the weather in Seattle, but without the rain. In addition, it turned the wine poor and the grapes sour. For the year 536, that is therefore a simple strike. We know from basic biology that plants require the sun to grow and survive. Thus, global food productivity suffered greatly from the lack of direct sunshine for at least a year, which also caused a widespread famine. Not only did the plants desire to receive sunlight, but the temperature was simply too low for any kind of crop to flourish. The Earth's temperature decreased by 1.6 to 2.5 degrees Celsius, or 34.88 to 36.5 degrees Fahrenheit for those Americans who might not find that too cold due to the sun being covered in an unending cloud cover. However, it also brought about a long-term drop in temperature. Around this time, crop shortages were reported everywhere, especially in Ireland, which went through a terrible-sounding food shortage they dubbed bread failure. For those impoverished individuals struggling to make ends meet in 536, there was more than simply a shroud of dust blocking the sun. Additionally, there were a few plagues awaiting an opportunity to attack these immune systems deficient in vitamin D. There was no one this invasion could escape. It moved up to the imperial palace and through the lower classes. The symptoms, as they were tenderly described, started as a sore that appeared on the hand's palm and got worse until the affected person was unable to walk. The leg began to swell. Then pus emerged from the burst buboes. Of course, if the same pandemic struck today, there would undoubtedly be a new contender for the worst year to live in, a TV program called Dr. Bubo's Pus Buster. When the plague started spreading through Constantinople, the city started to smell because of the heaps of dead, sick bodies that were thrown into the sea and then came back to the surface. Back then, there wasn't much planning going on for funerals. Bring your corpses out. A greater wing-it mentality was prevalent during the Justinian plague. The removal of the bodies from the city was ordered by Emperor Justinian.
I'm not dead! Yeah, he says he's not dead. Yes, he is. I'm not.
However, since healthy individuals were in charge of transporting lifeless, ill bodies out of the towns, all that was accomplished was exposing more people to the illness. Emperor Justinian's lot wasn't entirely awful, though, because the disease that claimed so many lives and turned the city into a foul nightmare would come to be known as the Plague of Justinian. That must have been pleasant for him. Less so, though, for the 50 million individuals that are thought to have died from it. China's environment began a spiral into craziness around 536 when it began to do completely typical things like showering dust so fine you could scoop it up with your hands. It should not only shower dust, but it also shouldn't be quantifiable in scoops. A 6th century chronicle called the Nan Shi described a substance that resembled yellow ash descending from the sky. They claimed it was yellow in color and called their unusual weather hui, or dust. It's unclear if this was caused by volcanic ash or just a strange, unexplainable reaction to the climate. But China's disturbance of the climate was far from over. A common summer-winter weather occurrence with frost in the middle of summer and snow in August was documented in the annals of the southern dynasties. The crops were not prepared for this chilly weather, much like a Southern California girl in Chicago in January. The crops of the summer were ruined, and Xinzhou and other cities were plunged into a horrific famine that claimed the lives of between 70 and 80% of the inhabitants over the course of 2 years. Deep within Greenland's and Iceland's ice sheets, scientists found evidence of a significant volcanic eruption that took place approximately 536. Volcanic eruptions in Iceland between 540 and 547 plunged humanity into the literal Dark Ages, with ash coating the heavens and obstructing the bright, hot sun that people were beginning to get accustomed to in the 6th century. Some researchers have proposed that El Salvador's volcano erupted in the years 535 or 536 based on ash from a tropical volcano that was later found. Others still blamed the world's black sky on a volcanic eruption that occurred in North America. In conjunction with the 2 eruptions of Icelandic volcanoes, it was affectionately dubbed the Late Antique Little Ice Age. This adorable little ice age killed crops and consequently people while cooling the world for at least 10 years, a population that consequently was more vulnerable to diseases, of which there were many circulating, both directly via malnutrition and indirectly. Volcanoes erupting is one item that most definitely couldn't say it had a rough year. By the 6th century, the Roman Empire had moved to Constantinople in the east. And like an alumnus who continues to frequent the university and don their Letterman jacket, the Romans, led by Emperor Justinian, aspired to return to the heyday of the empire. Well, it's kinda cool. Even if some of Justinian's generals achieved success with this cool goal, Belisarius, for example, who battled against a variety of forces, including Goths and Vandals, Justinian himself was unable to replicate the accomplishment because of the ongoing uprisings and unstable imperial rule. Success is often impeded by those annoying upheavals. The Byzantine Empire would never fully recover from the disease and starvation caused by the events of 536, adding illness to battle losses. In 541, the Byzantine Empire saw a population decline ranging from 35% to 55%. Once established, the bubonic plague killed a distressingly high proportion of the entire populations, doing what plagues do best. Historians surmise that during this manifestly futile attempt to restore the Roman Empire to its zenith, plague-ridden rats may have boarded military trains and spread the disease. The horror that was 536 knew no bounds. Likewise, the Moche civilization in Peru would not consider 536 to be a great year. The Moche culture, which formerly ruled the area, was renowned for its sophisticated irrigation system, which enabled the growth of a wide range of crops, and for its love of fish. Their economy relied heavily on their agricultural prowess. However, the weather in the 6th century severely damaged their finances. During this period, the waters warmed due to an exceptionally powerful El Niño weather phenomenon, severely destroying the fish population. They were unable to cultivate enough food to sustain their people, and their irrigation systems were severely damaged by the severe flooding brought on by the unusual weather pattern. A group of researchers set out to correct the record once and for all because they were undoubtedly sick of hearing people on Twitter say that X or Y was the worst year ever. Michael McCormick, a historian from Harvard, and a team of academics chose to use science to solve the age-old conundrum of which year was the worst to be alive. But at first, McCormick and his team of 12 multidisciplinary academics had other plans. The committee convened to examine the use of metals, coinage, and modifications made to the monetary systems of the 7th century. One undoubtedly started to wonder somewhere in this exciting subject matter if they were living in the worst year of their life. A study of volcanic fragments from an Icelandic volcano found in ice core samples from Swiss glaciers revealed that the eruption, which occurred in 536, did, in fact, cause a global catastrophe by plunging much of the northern hemisphere into an unparalleled state of darkness. Yeah, but Deep Impact and Armageddon were both released in 1998, and the public was forced to select their favorite of two action films centered around asteroids. It was a difficult year. There is ample evidence that the world experienced climatic trauma, which set off a series of climate catastrophes that ultimately led to actual human suffering. Keep in mind that everyone has only one Earth. Kindly dispose of waste properly. When analyzing Icelandic trees, dendrochronologists, those who use tree rings to establish a tree's age because it's a science and not a conjecture, found some unsettling tendencies. The tree's growths halted at the time, the rings showed, indicating that a major cooling event had taken place somewhere in the middle of the 6th century. This helped pinpoint the year 536 as the approximate timing of the cataclysmic event that destroyed Earth, together with recently discovered ice core data found in 2018. Things weren't always as bad while looking into the worst year to live. Actually, there was a bright end to the research that our friends at Harvard initiated. Even if the events of 536 set off some genuinely dire periods in the history of our world, the researchers were also able to pinpoint the exact times when things began to improve. Lead was found to be returning to the ice core samples, which suggested that people were once again making silver for currency when they were studying coins. Ah, capitalism, the universal life force. According to experts, the abundance of silver indicated that more coins were being made, a sign of a healthy economy. The lesson is that, despite appearances, things almost always turn around.